This is demo number 2 for painting number 2, our self-portrait paintings, our post-impressionist self-portrait paintings. And so today we want to start with color. Now, if you remember last time, I did 2 different sketches, and after I did this painting sketch, which I did very quickly, I realized like there were a few things that need to be fixed. So what I did is I actually mixed up a different color than the blue, a purple, and I fixed up. I realized my forehead needed to be a little bit bigger, the top of my head needed to be a little bit bigger. I needed to give myself a little more brain. That's a common mistake. Make sure there's enough space up there. I needed to make my chin a little bit wider and longer, and my nose a little bit wider. Like it's easy to kind of shrink things in, so I needed to pull things out a little bit. So I've made my fixing lines with the purple. So I know that when I paint over, I'm gonna go for those purple marks, unless I have decided that the blue marks feel like they're pretty good. Okay, so the goal of this stage is to cover your entire canvas with paint. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to like look at what the colors are in the face, but we're gonna try to push those colors and go a little bit crazy with making them slightly unrealistic. But since this is called direct painting, what we have to look at is not just the color, but also the value. So we're looking at like, okay, this is the darker area of the face, this is the lighter area of the face, so we're gonna be mixing up different colors. The more colors you mix and the more brush strokes you do, the more interesting your painting's gonna be. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start just by doing a background. And I think I kind of like this blue color. So I'm gonna mix up a slightly different blue color so I don't totally lose this. And I'm gonna paint my background in first. It's always easiest to do your background first. Actually, you know what? I take that back. Since I've got that purple mixed, I'm gonna use that purple and then I'll do a semi-revealing scumbling layer of the blue over the top when it dries to get sort of a purpley blue background, since I've got purple and blue there. And that'll just help me use up my paints nicely. As always, you want to go in a little bit further than you think you need because you don't want that white ghosting area. Okay, so you'll notice that I got about here and then I ran out of color. So I mixed up a new color, which was a little bit more of a bluey purple than I had before. So in order to kind of like, it's okay if your background shifts a little bit, but you don't want these like drastic shifts that draw attention. Essentially, you want your background to be interesting enough to just fade away so that people don't really look at it. And so I brought some of that purpley blue over here and I did some paint marks, but I didn't totally cover that more reddy purple. I just sort of smoothed out some parts so it starts to get this kind of like eveny pattern texture. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna make a lighter blue, and I'm gonna kind of scumble, what's called scumble, which is like a little bit like a glaze, but kind of do this with a lighter color over the top of this darker color, and the lighter over the darker is actually gonna kind of make it feel like it pushes back. What we did before, glazing the colors over the lighter areas, kind of glazing darker, makes things pull forward, but we want to push the background back, so we're going to do lighter over darker. And again, I'm not going to completely cover all the purple. I want parts of it to just peekaboo through. So I'm going to kind of have some areas where I dot it in and then maybe spread it out a little bit, but I kind of want to do it evenly. I am not using gloss medium. I am using the retarder though, because it helps that dry time so that I can play around with kind of pushing and pulling the paint a little bit more. Your background can be whatever color you want it to be. I've chosen a bluey purple because blue is the opposite of orange and purple is the opposite of yellow. So all the yellows and the oranges in my face, it'll provide a nice contrast to. Again, the point of the background is to kind of allow your face to stand out. You can also choose whatever texture you want in the background. It can be smoother than I've done mine, and it can be a little bit more textured than I've done mine, but you don't want to go too much textured because then you start to draw attention away from the face. Also, for this project, don't do like a setting in the background because I want you to spend time on working on your face, not on what's going on in the background. So I think I like that. Again, you can see the kind of the brighter purple peekabooing through the blue. That's gonna be the like basis for everything we do in this painting. We want to set down brighter colors first, sometimes totally unrealistic colors, and then we're going to cover them with slightly more subdued colors, but we're going to let those colors like show through in a really interesting way. So the next thing I'm going to attack is my hair. And I think I'm going to do like a deep blue just for the basis of my hair, and then I'll build browns up over the top of that. You can go more traditional and do like your base hair color, and then maybe poke in some colors on the top of that, but I'm going to start with blue just to see what happens. Now I want to make sure I follow my purple lines, and it's tricky because my hair overlaps. So I'm going to do, as I do these base layers, there's going to be a little bit of give and take of like what overlaps what, and that's okay. And that's why I keep coming back to my reference photo. But I'm going to start with just painting in kind of where my hairline actually is, and then paint in a few bits of my hair later on. And I am not worrying about the individual strands of my hair. I am literally just painting in a chunk of hair. This is where my hair goes. It's a blue chunk. Okay, I think I'm going to use this blue as a basis for all the browns in my face. So I'm going to kind of emphasize my eyebrows, my eyelashes, my eyes, and maybe even like the part of my nostrils, and the little dimples on the side of my smile. As a sort of dark area on my face. Remember, switch up your brush. Smaller brushes for smaller areas, smaller strokes, larger brushes for larger areas, larger strokes. Okay, so now I need to attack the skin. I could attack the shirt, but I want to work on the skin first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at this picture that I've gone in and I've edited so that I emphasize some of the colors. And I'm going to look at what I see. I see pinks, yellows, like a browny orange on this side. There's a little bit of blue in there, some purples down here, some greens under here, or maybe right around there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a variety of, again, like overly colorful skin tones, and then use those to paint the underlayer on my face. Now, all skin tones, some basic colors for all skin tones are ultramarine blue, raw umber, which is a brown, burnt sienna, which is like a redder brown, cadmium red. Different reds do different things. You can play around with different reds, but this is usually a pretty good one. And yellow ochre and white. And you can actually mix up quite a variety of skin tones with those colors. If you are Caucasian like me, you're going to emphasize more on the yellows and the whites. If you're a different skin tone, then you're going to make use of the blues and the browns a little bit more. But everyone has some variation of all of those colors in their skin tone. Another color that can be nice is Naples yellow, but it's pretty much just yellow ochre with some white added to it. So if you don't want to like get an extra color, then you can just use yellow ochre with lots of white. So now I'm going to use, I've got these ones plus a few extra. I'm going to use these to mix up just a bunch of different skin tones. And remember, I'm looking at values too. So it's not just the colors, but how light or how dark they are. And the values are a little bit less important in this underlayer, but they are important. Okay, so I've mixed up some colors. I've got some kind of reds, orange, yellow, green, that purpley color, and then some browns. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my medium paintbrush, and I'm just gonna go in, but I'm not gonna paint chunks. I'm gonna kind of try to do individual brush strokes in certain areas and then build up those brush strokes. And the easiest way to stop yourself from like just wanting to paint in an area is to keep switching color. Okay, so it looks a little creepy. That's okay. Um, what I have done here is I've established a base layer of some bright colors. You can see that like this side of the face is darker than this side of the face, and that there are certain areas that are even like darker where the shadows are cast. I've lost some of the detail like in the eyes and the mouth. I'm not worried about that. That's something I'll reestablish later on. And one of the most important things I've done is that I've covered the canvas, even like the whites of the eyes. I've made them a little bit less white. I'm trying to get rid of all those. I mean, there's a few tiny white spots. We'll deal with those later, but really trying to get paint on all the canvas so then I have something to kind of keep pushing and pulling against. So the last thing is to do my shirt. My shirt is gray in here. I may just do like a light blue shirt, but I want to look at the folds. So again, everything that I'm painting, I want to do in kind of brush strokes and bold brush strokes. So yeah, we'll see. I'll mix up a little bit more sort of lighter blue. Don't fuss the details. Remember, we're not going for super realism here. We're going for semi-realistic. We want it to look like a face. We want it to be somewhat recognizable as your face. But if all the details aren't perfect, that's okay. That's the painting style. You'll see I'm not afraid to let the like brush strokes show. I'm not trying to make tons of like bumps on there, but letting the brush strokes show through and see the paint as paint, that's a part of this process. All right, this is definitely not how I want it to end up, but it's a great first layer and it'll give me a lot to work with as I keep building more opaque layers over the top. And all of my canvas is covered, which is always a good step.